Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me here. And if it is your first time, my name is Courtney and I do food and kitchen related content, grocery hauls, what's for dinner, and meal prep videos. If you like that, hit the subscribe button, smash the like button, stick around, and drop me a comment. I'm glad you joined me here. All right, so we are doing my weekly meal prep. I used to do this a long time ago, then I stopped, and now I'm getting back into the habit. One of my favorite things to do is to meal prep for the weekends. During the week, we're busy with like homeschool and appointments and all kinds of stuff. So I really like my weekends to be a little more relaxing. I want some time to do things I like hobbies or whatever, hang out with my kids, have a good time, watch a movie, stuff like that. I don't want to have to constantly worry about food, so I've been meal prepping for weekends just to make it so much easier, and that has been a game changer for me. My weekends are mine again, and I love it. So we are having like a guest over this weekend. My son is bringing a friend over, so I'm making tacos because young people like tacos. That's what they say anyway. Anyway, he's bringing his friend over, and they said they wanted tacos, so I'm like, I'm on it, y'all. I cook tacos all the time. I'm also gonna make dessert, and that's what we're starting off with. This is a magic cookie bar. I will link this recipe down below for y'all to try. I've been making this for a long time, and it's super easy and super delicious. So I just put some graham crackers in my food processor and just kind of like whizzed them up until they were nice and powdery, and then added in some melted butter, blended it a few times, like pulsed it. And that's the crust. You press it into a greased dish. I'm using a 9x13 casserole dish. And then I added some sweetened evaporated milk on top. This is like the caramel you get in candy bars that holds everything together. So I just drizzled this evenly over the crust. You really want to do your best to try to just drizzle it on nicely the first time, because if you have to spread it, like you'll see in a minute, I have to do. It does kind of pull the crust up a little bit. So if you can avoid that, that's great. I mean, if not, don't worry about it. This is going to get covered by goodies anyway. No one's going to see it. You'll just know it's there, and it'll probably annoy you because it annoys me. But you do want that like caramely sauce to be everywhere, and it is the glue that holds all the fun stuff on top. So essentially the crust is the bottom, this is our caramel, and then we're going to add all the fun stuff on top. So I'm linking the original recipe, which is pecans, coconut, and chocolate chips, and I'm basically sticking to that, which if you are a longtime viewer of my channel, I typically don't do. I like veer off somewhere and change things up because that's how I roll. But today I'm pretty much just sticking to it. The only change I made was I used walnuts instead of pecans, and that's something I typically do for every recipe just because I don't really like pecans as much. They leave like a weird bitter taste in my mouth, and I just prefer walnuts because they don't bother me. Also, walnuts are cheaper, so that's a positive for me too. But I'm just hand breaking these up. I'm not going to chop them and dirty up another cutting board because after a day in the kitchen, I knew there would be so many dishes, and there were, and I just didn't want to add to that pile. Anyway, like I said, just hand breaking these up. Now, if I were to do this again, I would totally do almond slivers, which I had in my pantry, instead of this, because I think almond, coconut, and chocolate is a classic pairing, and it would just be fabulous. But this was great too. No complaints from anyone. Anyway, just put as much or as little as you want on there. I'm sure the recipe has measurements, but I kind of see it as a lot of people don't love as many nuts on there. So like you just do you, add what you like. I'm not a huge fan of nuts in every bite, so I went pretty lightly with them. Next, we're going to add on some chocolate chips. Now, I think this is where you should veer off. Like I really, really want to do an almond, dried cranberry, white chocolate version of this because I think it would be amazing. What do you guys suggest? Have you guys made this before? Do you make it differently? What are your thoughts on it? Because I would like to do this with some different flavors just for funsies because it's so easy to throw together. What a super simple dessert to have like in your back pocket whenever you need to throw one out. And I think with the cranberries and the white chocolate, it would just be beautiful to look at. So those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Anyway, I added my chocolate chips. Yes, I am generous with them because I love chocolate. And then I added on some shredded coconut. I was not as generous with this because my oldest son does not like coconut. He did like these though, so that tells you anything. That's how good they were. I did go, I put it in every bite, but I wasn't like super heavy-handed with it. Personally, I love coconut. I could have had more on there, but I really wanted him to enjoy these as well. Then just gently press everything down into that sweetened condensed milk and pop it in the oven to bake, and you are done. Sadly, I did not get aftershots of pretty much anything that I did on this day because my brain was just not working with me, I guess. And I am sorry about that. All right, so on to the tacos. I'm going to do both beef and chicken tacos because whenever I have company over and I do a taco spread, that's what I always do. That way everybody has something to choose from. Some people don't like beef, some people don't like chicken. Just makes it easier for everyone. Also, this makes a ton of food so we can eat on it for a couple of days. So if you're not meal prepping for company and you're meal prepping for your family, they will really enjoy over the weekend having things to choose from. They can have tacos, they can have grilled chicken burritos, like it just kind of gives you some versatility. So I started off by cooking 2 pounds of ground beef. I used the paper towel trick to get the oil out of the grease out of the pan. And then I added in some taco seasoning, not something I typically do, but again, my son had a friend over and I know that like a lot of people really like Taco Bell. So I did go ahead and like add in 1 pack. It should have been 2 for 2 pounds of ground beef. I only did 1 because I knew I just was not going to like having that much seasoning on there. And this was pretty strong to me too. That's my whole deal. If you are new here, I don't love packaged taco seasoning. It's just overpowering. It's so overpowering. And like when I go to Mexican food restaurants where I live down in Texas, that is not what they use. That's what they use at Taco Bell or at like Taco Villa or something, but that's not even what they use at the restaurants. So I kind of prefer the restaurant taste, but I mean, you do you, whatever you like is great. That was the beef. I added in the water and let it simmer, and it was fantastic. I always leave a little extra water in there because when I reheat this, I don't want the meat to get dried out. That's just my little tip and trick. All right, on to the chicken. So we use the chicken for both tacos, burritos, and that cheesy chicken and rice dish that's so popular. I've made it before on my channel, and I served it for dinner on the night that I made this. It was actually just my husband and myself that had dinner that night. Everybody else was busy. So I had plenty left over for chicken tacos or burritos. I did not pull that little tendon thing out, which is my bad. I should have done that. I just cut it out when I was chopping up the chicken later, but do better than me and try to remember to pull that tendon thing out. I like to season my chicken very, very heavily when I'm making it for like tacos or fajitas or the cheesy chicken and rice. And my kind of go-tos are salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and paprika. Sometimes I do a little chili powder. Occasionally I'll do cumin, but it's just kind of one of those spices that kind of gets away from me pretty quickly, so I kind of try to stay away from it. Today I'm using Julio seasoning in place of salt. I don't know if you guys have Julio's where you live. Down here, Julio's is a company that makes like tortilla chips and salsa, and they have some like food stand locations where they do burritos and stuff. Their food's super good. And the Julio seasoning is what they put on their chips, and it's very salty. It's like an MSG seasoning. So good though. Their chips are so, so good. And you can buy the seasoning at like H-E-B and stuff. And I did. I typically have it on hand. So I just use that in place of salt today because it has a little extra flavor to it. And then I added on paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, and pepper. I love pepper on my chicken. I think it just, I don't know, something about heavily peppered chicken tastes amazing. It just is really a great pairing. Then I just popped this in a skillet with some of my homemade garlic oil and let it brown on both sides to develop some flavor. And then once it was done, I just chopped it up so we could have the chicken for our cheesy chicken and rice, and we could have it for tacos. And in the background, you can see those finished magic cookie bars. Those were so good. Definitely try that recipe. And it makes a large amount. So like if you're feeding a crowd of people like I was, it's great because it goes pretty far. And I don't feel like the ingredients are anything too crazy. Most of us already have a lot of those things on hand anyway. So I feel like this was like a real winner of a dish. I put the chicken in and just cooked it on both sides. It doesn't take long for those tenders. I think that chicken thighs would have been even better because they don't dry out as much when you reheat them. But this is what I had on hand, and this is what I had thought. I was going to do something else with it, and I changed my mind, so it's what was available. You got to use up what you have. You don't want to waste anything, and that was kind of my take on it. So we used this, and it was still really, really good. But that's what the chicken looks like. Like I said, I like to let it brown really nicely. All right, so what is a taco dinner without rice and beans? We're going to get started on the beans. I'm making charro beans. So I live down in Texas, and the traditional charro beans that I encounter a lot down here have hot dogs in them, interestingly enough. I don't know how authentic that is, but I do know it's like a West and South Texas thing. I see it very often. Not my favorite, though, because I don't really like hot dogs. I like charro beans because you can be so versatile with them and flexible. So I've put chorizo in before. I've put sausage in before. Today I'm putting in ham, just like ham lunch meat. Tastes great. And then I put in an onion that I diced up, a jalapeno, and a poblano pepper, a lot of pepper because I love a lot of pepper. And I'm putting 2 packages of that Sazon seasoning, that Goya Sazon seasoning. I do not salt my beans. My advice would be don't do that because it makes your beans a little bit tougher. I salt them after they are cooked. I just pop the lid on and I cook them for about 5 hours on the stovetop. And I do have to add more water once or twice during the cooking process. All right, so next I'm going to make some salsa. That tomato salsa in a can that you see, I use that in place of like Rotel or diced tomatoes because I think it has a better flavor. I buy it at Walmart. That's the only place I can find it, but it is fabulous, so I highly suggest giving it a shot. Then I toss in 1 poblano, 1 jalapeno, both seeded, half of an onion. I'm using a very small one, so I just use the whole thing. And some garlic and some salt, some well, I didn't put pepper in today, but you should put pepper in. It tastes really good. And lime juice. Typically, I would put in cilantro, and I really can't tell you why I didn't because it was in my fridge and I should have, but I didn't. So here we go. And I just like blend it up. I like mine to be chunky. It was a little chunkier than I would have liked this time. I think my blades are getting a little dull because I'm having a hard time breaking down those peppers, but I don't know how to sharpen this type of blade. Does anybody know how to do that? Please share that info with me down below. I don't want to have to like replace my food processor or anything. I love this one so much. So once it's all blended up, this is where I give it a taste test. I like to make sure like if it needs salt or anything like that, I can add it in now. And I always test it with a tortilla chip because they're pre-salted, so I really get a good idea of how it's going to taste. And this was really fantastic the way it was. Didn't need to add anything. The last thing we're going to make is rice. This is my go-to rice recipe. I have made this for years and years and years. So I rinsed a cup and a half of rice until the water ran clear. And then I'm going to saute that rice in a skillet with some garlic oil or just plain oil is fine. And a diced onion. Again, my onions were like super small. So I just went with one small onion, but I would have liked a little bit more in there. And I let this cook until it starts to develop a little bit of color, but not like get brown or anything. If you're using raw garlic, you want to get it in here to cook with the onion and the rice and stuff. I'm using my confit garlic, so I wasn't really like in a rush to get it in there, but I did want it to kind of melt into this rice and stuff. If you have not seen that, I do have a video on how I make my confit garlic. This is like my favorite cooking condiment in my kitchen. It is fabulous. Now, normally I would also add in some tomato paste, but I sadly discovered at this very moment that I was out. So I did not do that. I also always add in that tomato bouillon, and I like to toast the tomato paste and the bouillon in the skillet with the rice and the oil and stuff before I add any water. Just makes it taste a little bit better. And I just did this without the tomato paste because I didn't have any, no big deal. I mean, I noticed it was missing, but it was still really good rice. Then I add in my water and I let this simmer on low until it's done. And that's what it looks like. And it's really good. I always get compliments on my rice, so I highly suggest giving it a shot. If you have tomato paste, add in like 3 tablespoons. All right, y'all, that was my meal prep. I didn't have to cook all weekend, so it was great. I got a break. It was nice. I relaxed. I crocheted. It was fun. What do you guys like to do on the weekend? Do you have any hobbies? Let me know down below. All right, y'all, thanks for joining me. And I will be back here on Saturday with my what's for dinner video. I'll see you then. Bye.